Hello guys, and welcome to my channel. So today I would like to show you how to build a really awesome cool TUI application in Rust, the terminal application, and I really think this is cool, guys. We'll be doing this with the RATATUI library, which I think you should check it out if you're also interested in building terminal applications. And just to give you a quick overview of what we'll be building today, I'm now just cargo run release username.csv. I'm passing the CSV file, and boom, guys. What this is actually doing is I'm passing, as you just saw, the name, a path to a CSV file, and it gets to loading this file pre-process more or less, and then we can see like a quick overview of the content of the file. And of course, it's not just like sitting docs. We can actually move around to see what the content of our data is, and if we don't like this theme, we have the option of actually switching to this, or maybe this, or maybe this, and I think I like this, and we might stick to this. And so apart from giving you a quick insight as to what your data looks like, you also get like visualization. You get some plots, so it's also kind of smart to figure out which columns could be plotted, and then it tries to plot this for you, and you get like linear plots and scatter plots, which I also think like it's really super awesome. And on top of that, you also get statistics, some basic statistics. You see here like mean, median, range, percentiles, standard deviation, kurtosis, and skewness. And that's it, guys. I think this is really cool. I will try as much as I can today to explain to you how this could be set up for you if you find this really interesting. And I will also show you how you can structure application, because like is the motto of this channel more or less. I will try to make it as easy as possible for you. So I will do the heavy lifting, try to understand how this actually works, and then I'll come back to you with a really simple application, so you can also do this on your own if you find it interesting. So without further ado, guys, I think it's time we jump in and start building some applications. So let's go, guys. So what I will do, like we always do, is to create a simple readme file, or file, not a folder. So, or readme, that's markdown. And so I already told you we would be making use of the RATATUI library, which can be found at RATATUI.rs, and then of course the Rust language, which will be writing a terminal in. And so for this to work, I'm gonna just give a quick guide to the steps we would be taking to actually run our application. So on the topmost level, there are 3 steps that needs to happen, or that we will follow to write a good terminal application, at least with the RATATUI library. So the first step would be we disable the terminal raw mode. And if you have no idea what the raw mode is, I will add a link where you can read up a little bit about what this means. To build this application, you actually do not need to know what this really means, but if you are also like really curious like me to really understand every aspect of whatever you're using, I would think you find the link that I'll attach helpful to at least give you a quick overview of what this means. And then the second thing we do on the topmost, like really on a high level, would be to run the application, which will of course run in an infinite loop. And the third thing we need to do when the application shuts down, like you can already guess, is to disable the terminal raw mode. And just so we are clear, this we enable here and then we disable here at the end of our application execution. That's really it. And the next thing I would like to show you would be the structure of the TUI. So I'd just like to give you a quick rundown of what the application would look like. So I will like to structure this to give it as much structure as possible, and to do that I will group the like you would do, for example, if you're building a front-end application. I would like to structure every component, every aspect of the TUI that I'll be building as components, and set up more or less a component library. So we would have components, we will have a global state. So this would be really important for us to have like a global mutable state. Maybe I'll also need to put this in here. So to be a global mutable state that we can always like pass around our components, to like give us that flexibility to manipulate the state whenever we need to. And of course, one thing I would always do here is all these components will have the same structure, so that if you want to extend this example that I'm giving you, you would really know how to go about it. Like, I would try as much as I can to break it down for you so you can really use this if you really want to use it. And I think that's mostly what we need to do. I think that's really mostly it about the structure. And without further ado, we can already start development. So let's jump right in. Let's really get started now. So to get started, we can head over to RATATUI.rs, and there is a really handy Hello World example on their official web page, and we are just going to copy that and use that as our starting application. So I would say cargo init to initialize a new project, and then I go into main within source and paste that, which you can see over here. And of course, the next thing I would have to do would be to make the necessary imports. So we'd need, like we said already, Ratatouille, and then we need cross-term. So cross-term is like a cross-platform library that would allow you to manipulate terminals across like different platforms. And there is also a list of supported terminals. I will also add this in the description, so you stay guided when you're doing this. So I'll paste in the dependencies over here, and then maybe really extend my terminal so we can see everything that's going on. And now we can actually run cargo run to see what we have. We'll give it a couple of seconds to build, and then we would see where we are. So we are done compiling, and as you can see, this is what we are left with. And if we can of course hit the Q button like the instruction we see there, and then we can of course exit out of the application. So what I would like to really do now is to show you more or less all I think you need to know when it comes to structuring this application, just so you understand that this is really straightforward. And what I would probably do is to show you from a couple of examples which I have already set up, just so you understand like how this could be structured in the end. So, but for your information, there are a couple of things you need to know when it comes to the main application, which is what I would like to show to you. So like I said over here, the components that this application now will be building or that you will also build when you start to build out your own application will have the same structure, or need to have the same structure. So they will be like more or less you're building, let's say if you're familiar with React, you're building components, and we assume that those components have the same or accept the same kind of props. That's exactly what we're doing here. And the point is just that it makes it a lot easier to move things around, for you to build reusable components. Again, everything for now, as I set it up, manages or reads data from the same state, and you can also use your own discretion, but I think it's really much easier this way to have a singular state that every other component can read data from, manipulate it, and you would also have like more or less the same. Of course, Rust will help you to not have like race conditions more or less by default, so you can always not have mistakes, or not like read record mistakes more or less when you're trying to access the data in your state. And this is really the setup. So I would just get this sample from over here, and then quickly just explain something to you so you understand what I mean. So in the initial example I showed you, for example, you would notice there was something like a scroll bar, and I'm just gonna copy this over and show you just for you to understand how easy this really is. So if I create a new folder in here called components, and inside of it maybe I have, for now let's just say, scroll bar .rs, and I paste it in here. And this is really what this is about. This is what I mean. So we every components that you would see or that I would show you in this example will always have the same signature, all of them, and it makes it a lot easier to reuse each, to actually swap one for the other. The only thing that would change, of course, would be the content of the component, but in the end they will and should look all the same. Maybe I can actually just show you what I've built and then walk you through a little bit so you understand really what we are doing. I think that would be much better and safer and save us a lot of time. So I think I will exactly do that right now if you give me a couple of seconds. So if you look in this example, you would see a couple of things. I have a folder that says components, and inside of it I have a couple of things. One is charts, and inside charts you could see line charts and scatter plots, and then there is menu and table. So if we look into either of these, for example charts, we would see one thing, which was what I tried to show you initially. So one will of course be this frame object, and after it would be this app over here, which is more or less our state. And if I take you to it, you would see that every form of data that was managed in this application, I did that from this state. So it tells you, gives information about the menu themselves, the data that's been moved around, and stuff like that. And this is really what I'm trying to show you. So once you can actually understand how to structure your components this way, if you look into the main file, for example, which is over here, you would see, for example, how the components are used. So here I have like chart, line chart.render and this.render, and if you look in here, you see that what is being passed to all of them actually stays the same. And this is actually the goal here. So if you already have some basic understanding of programming, it doesn't even have to relate to developing, let's say, front-end applications where you get to be familiar with things like React or so, which of course I'm myself not a front-end developer anyways. But if you have done some programming, you can of course just think of these as functions having the same input arguments, more or less, and that's just it. That's just that about that. And if you notice from the menu that I showed you, where I'm switching between tabs, where we move from like visualizing the data to the plot view and then to statistics view, you would see over here I'm actually just doing this with a simple match, and I have, this would be the names of the or the IDs, more or less, of those different tabs, which are of course stored in the state. And then I simply, as you can see over here, I have a component in the state called tab, and I simply match this value and say, if for example, when this is the case, when the ID is this, I would like to render this. It renders a table, and beside is of course a scroll bar. If we are in the visualization bar, we render a chart, a line chart, as we saw, and we also render a scatter plot. And this over here is basically just to structure the UI. If you look over here, we are consuming the whole space to show our table, but over here we are creating a more or less a horizontal layout, and we are actually just using ratios to say split it in twos and render these two components on those two separate aspects of that page that just got split into. That's also why again, the very important thing, which I'm really over reiterating, is that the signature of these components makes it a lot easier, that I get to create this layout, for example, split it in two, and then the areas that I got out of it, I actually pass them to these two components as the areas as to where I want them rendered. And this is really just as straightforward as that. And when we get to the statistics table, you can again notice that it was just one table and we used the entire screen, and that was why we also again just rendered the table with a scroll bar. And that's really it. The last page was what I called extras, and there's really nothing in it for now, which, as you can see, when we got to the last page, it was empty. So, and that's really all there is to this. And then there is a footer, which again you saw at the on the demo that I showed you, where it shows you also this couple of instructions as to is the keys that you could use. So if I take you to the render method, for example, you will see I have this text here, which is really for now just hard coded, and this was also what you saw at the foot of the demo. So you had like use the escape key to quit, move up and down to, of course, navigate the data on the main menu, or any data on the main menu will be on the main viewport will be navigated with these up and down arrow keys. And then we have these side keys, which can be used to change like the color, more or less like the theme of the application. And then we have the enter key, which you can use to navigate the different menus. And that's really all there is to this. That's just it. And the next thing I will also want to show you is how the UI is also defined. So if I take you to the main, let's go back to the main function again. I have, like I told you initially, so we enable the raw mode, then we make some definitions regarding our terminal application. We run the app, which of course, if I take you there, you would see that this is running in an infinite loop. And when the application is done, as you can see here, we disable the raw mode, and that's really it. And if we look into the main application, this is where we are using or supplying those instructions as to how to use the application. We have this key code here, which also, if we explore it a little bit, you can see that it has all these keys predefined here as enums that you could use to define like how you want to listen to your keystroke events on your terminal application. And all we had to do was just to leverage this, as you can see. So we said Q would be for if you want to quit, and then we simply return OK. And then J says app.next, which of course, like this is what we use when we scroll through the data we have on the main viewport. And the same goes for every other thing. We have up, down, right, left, enter, and back tab, like I told you. But what you also would notice is that all these functions, as you can see here, come from this app, which again is the state. So every single thing that is happening within this application, at least, is with data that is being handled from the state, which I explained again initially, the benefit of having everything channeled to this state, and then you can have it, every of your components would have access to it, and you can also modify it because it's always passed around as a mutable object. And again, this is the UI. This is where we do the whole setup as to how the application would look like. So we have an outer, so I actually created like two layouts. So one here will actually be for the main menu, for example, and the other one would be for the main viewport. And I'm using percentages to define, of course, what should be where and so. And as you can see here, and that's really all that there is to it. So you have like a layout which you can define the direction. It could be horizontally or vertically. If I also actually over it, you would get some hints. 1 second, if I can, just as you can see over here. So each of them also shows you like what these values actually mean. So if you use percentages, if you use ratios, as the case may be, if you are also someone who have been or understands how like UIs could be structured, you can definitely build a far better application than I did. And that's really the point. I just want you to understand, like, the whole point is you define these layouts, and then we simply just render widgets inside of those layouts. So that's why you see here the area, which of course is defining where on the terminal we want to render each of these components, is always coming from these layouts that we define. And we get to, of course, build components within components within components. We get to break it down, to suit our UI needs, and that's really all there is to it. And then I explained this part already, which is the way that this application is navigating the different tabs. And one quick thing, one last thing I might also want to show you might be the charts. So for the charts, it's also again having the same signature as you can see over here, like every other component, and so if you look through here, I used, one second, yes, I used this charts widget in Ratatouille to make the plots. And again, here it's also like really straightforward. So aside from having like line charts, for example, which is also like really, there's nothing so special about it, because the widgets have been there already. It's just to extend this widget and more or less modify the way you would want your application to look like, which was exactly what I did. So you have you get to define the axis, you get to define the data, and of course the data is, we are passing the CSV file, and then I wrote some funny functions here to help me determine like the extremum values from the columns that I can plot, and then these extremum values will help me to more or less decide what the scale of the plots to look like. So that's why you see me extracting these values up here and then using them here in the bounds to define what should happen. I was adding here like some buffer values to just not have my data point terminates right on the axis, so to push them a little bit away from the edges of the plots. And that's really all there is to this. Just some little trick I decided to use, and you can of course come up with some better tricks depending on what you want to build. It doesn't have to look exactly like mine. The point is just for you to understand how this whole thing is set up. So the next thing I would like to show you is the state. We've talked so much about it, and I would like to take a couple of minutes to actually show you how I handled mine, to give you like an understanding of how, or to give you more or less some ideas as to even like design things that are far more complicated than what I have here. And so I defined here a struct that would hold my state data, which I would like this application to manipulate in the course of it running. And so here I put information regarding like the menu, because I know that the menus, I would want to change certain things about the menu, because if you also notice, the tabs you see when the data from a CSV file is displayed is not hard coded, which means this also depends on the content of the CSV file that is being passed by the terminal application, which simply means we need to be a little bit flexible to just so we can always show something that is exactly what we are given. And of course we cannot know this beforehand, so that is why we would have this at the back of our minds, that this is data that will be changing over time depending on who is using the application and what file they are reading. Other than that, more other informations here are really about like the whole application. Like you have already seen tab, which is like those different tabs like I showed you, and you can see colors. So this also allows us to, as you saw with the themes, to decide on the current color to make our application have. And one thing of course you can already think about is to do this, the colors on each of those components are not hard coded, they are all read from the state, so that when you modify this singular, when you modify this value at a singular place, which happens to be the state, it gets modified every other place in the application, if this is the idea you're going for. I really like this, and that's why I went with it. And this is the next thing I would want to show you is the implementation of the state. The things that happen. So this is of course initializing the state with a new method, and other than that, these are just the functions that happen within the state, things like set next color, previous color, next color, and stuff like that. And then the up and down arrows, the previous and the next. That's really mostly what's going on here, and the same of course for the menu. So this is exactly what is going on here. If I take you to this point once more and you look over here, so when you click any of these keys, this is actually what is happening. So when, for example, you click the down arrow key, we take you to this function here, which simply just modifies some value in the state, and then you see what you need to see. And yeah, that's mostly it, guys. I don't think there is so much to say about this, and I hope that I've done you justice to try to explain to you like this, what's actually went into building this simple Terminal UI application, and how you can also leverage this to build your own really cool applications. And I would like to leave a link to this GitHub repo on this in the description. So for those of you who find it interesting, you can always go to this repo and maybe reference it. And of course, if anything is not clear, please reach out to me and write me, ask me questions. I will definitely reply as fast as possible. And that's really it. If you want to leave me feedbacks, or if you also want to like engage, whatever it is, if you want to ask questions, I'm also open to your opinions. I also want to understand how you think, or how you may be able to build something better than this. I am always open to learn myself. And yeah, that would be it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to bring you something also quite interesting in the coming days. And until then, we see each other again. If you are new to my channel, which actually just started a couple of weeks or days ago, please subscribe to the channel to also encourage me to go out there, do more research, come back and show you cool stuff, which you could also of course try on your own. Thank you so much, guys, and until next time, have a lovely evening. Bye bye.